Always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never give up, never slow, till I finally prove it. Never listen to the no's, I just wanna keep moving. Keep my head up when I act, head up, that's a fact. Never looking back, I'ma keep myself on track. Keep my head up, staying strong, always moving on. Feel I don't belong, tell my thoughts to move along. Push myself to be the best, die with no regrets. Live with every breath, see my message start to spread. And I had so many dreams, then you hit your teens. Life ain't really what it seems, try to find out what it means. Always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never give up, never slow, till I finally prove it. Never listen to the no's, I just wanna keep moving. Yeah, I put out all this art, it's my only medicine. Yeah, everything I do, I'm just being genuine. Yeah, I'm sick of being screwed, feel my own adrenaline. Yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah. I'm grateful, oh yeah, able, oh yeah, I'm stable, oh yeah, no label, oh yeah, you know me, I have only a path, I'm lonely, but damn, I'm going to win. I don't want no fake love, I want the real stuff. Everybody listen up, cause I'll only say it once. I'm gonna show you all the path, if you want it bad. I'm gonna show you where it's at, yeah, how you can get it back. Yeah, cause I ain't never done, I'll be number one. Working hella hard until I get just what I want, yeah. Rises like the sun, yeah, fatal like a gun. Shooters gonna shoot and I'm gonna shoot until I fall, yeah. Always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never give up, never slow, till I finally prove it. Never listen to the no's, I just wanna keep moving. Yeah, I put out all this art, it's my only medicine. Yeah, everything I do, I'm just being genuine. Yeah, I'm sick of being screwed, feel my own adrenaline. Yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah. I'm grateful, oh yeah, able, oh yeah, I'm stable, oh yeah, no label, oh yeah, you know me, I have only a path, I'm lonely, but damn, I'm going to win, yeah.
Hello again, everyone. Thank you for joining. So today, this was the story that I had planned on going over at 3, but I did push it to 3:30 because we got the very short press conference on Layla Santinello. But again, we did get information that we didn't know. They are searching a significant area of Kingsport, and hopefully they will find answers for her family sooner than later. So let me just say hello quickly. And yes, trigger warning advised. I will say that the details of this case are disturbing, and they may cause some of us to become emotional. So definitely heed that warning. Hello, Runs with Scissors. Excuse me. Yes. And this story, I actually was at my parents' a few weeks ago. Well, yeah, probably 3 weeks ago. And they just happened to have the nightly news on, and they covered this story. And I was like, oh my God, like this is effed up. And so today when I was getting ready for my live, I thought there would be tons and tons of news articles to sift through. Nope. The first time this was actually, based on what I could find on Google, the first time this was reported on was 3 weeks ago. And the I guess shocking thing is that this occurred on January 24th, 2023. So it has taken 6 months for this to come to light. And again, like I said, this is a very disturbing, complicated, convoluted, extreme case of police brutality. It's disgusting. Yes, and if anyone is interested in getting the documents, court documents related to the lawsuit, please send myself or Bash the Tragedy Pimps an email, and we will share them freely with you so that you can have some reading material if you should need some humor. Hey, Sinner. Rowdy, hi. Shauna. All right. So we're going to get started. Again, thank you everyone for being here. I very much appreciate it. I'm debating on showing one of the videos I have is a little bit longer. However, thank you to Bash for getting me the criminal complaint in this case. So I think there may be a video that I'm going to cut out. I haven't decided yet. But for now, we are going to start with an article that kind of gives a overview of this. And this article comes from the News Herald. And again, the Goon Squad, that is what these officers refer to themselves as. So that is why the title of this live was the Goon Squad. How 6 Mississippi officers tried to cover up horrific torture of 2 Black men. Men who had sworn an oath to protect and serve were huddled on the back porch of a Mississippi home as Michael Corey Jenkins lay on the floor, blood gushing from his mutilated tongue, where one of the police officers shoved a gun in his mouth and pulled the trigger. As Jenkins writhed in pain, the 6 white officers devised a scheme to cover up dozens of stunning acts of brutality that they had just carried out during a 90-minute period of terror against Jenkins and a second Black victim. The officers planted drugs. They stole surveillance footage from the house. They tried to dispose of other evidence. They agreed on a set of lies that would further append their victims' lives. And that was just the cover-up. Careful to avoid security cameras at the house, they burst in without a warrant, Careful to avoid security cameras at the house, they burst in without a warrant, starting the torture session of physical, sexual, and psychological abuse. They handcuffed Jenkins and his friend Eddie Terrell Parker and poured milk, alcohol, and chocolate syrup over their faces. They forced them to strip naked and shower together to conceal the mess. They mocked the victims with racial slurs. They electrocuted them. The officers had meant to torture the men without leaving physical scars. But one of the officers shot Jenkins in the mouth. Miraculously, Jenkins survived. The 6 officers pleaded guilty Thursday to a long list of federal civil rights charges. The Mississippi Attorney General's office announced afterward that it had filed state charges against the men, including assault, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. Law enforcement officers are seldom charged for crimes committed on the job, and it's rarer still for them to plead guilty. The charges follow an investigation by the Associated Press that linked some of the deputies to at least 4 violent encounters with Black men since 2019 that left 2 dead and another with lasting injuries. The officers included Christian Dedman, Hunter Elward, Brett McAlpin, Jeffrey Middleton, and Daniel Updike of the Rankin County Sheriff's Department, and Joshua Hartfield, a Richland police officer. They pleaded guilty to charges including conspiracy against rights, obstruction of justice, deprivation of rights under color of law, discharge of a firearm under a crime of violence, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. The terror began on January 24th in a racial call for extrajudicial violence that felt like it was from a bygone era. A white neighbor phoned Rankin County Deputy Brett McAlpin and complained that 2 black men were staying with a white woman inside a Braxton home. McAlpin told Deputy Christian Dedman, who texted a group of white deputies so willing to use excessive force they called themselves the Goon Squad. "Are y'all available for a mission?" Dedman asked. They were. Updike admits he was wrong for his part in the horrific harms and is prepared to face the consequences of his actions, attorney Jason Kirschberg said in a statement. Hartfield's attorney Vicky Gallium said while he cannot change what he did, he has shown that he is ready to accept consequences. Attorneys for the other men did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The deputies were under the watch of Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey, who called it the worst episode of police brutality he has seen in his career. Law enforcement misconduct in the U.S. has come under increased scrutiny. The 2020 killing of George Floyd by Minneapolis police ignited calls for sweeping criminal justice reforms and a reassessment of American race relations. The January beating death of Tyree Nichols by 5 black members of a special police squad in Memphis, Tennessee, led to a probe of similar units nationwide. In Rankin County, the brutality visited upon Jenkins and Parker was not a botched police operation, but an assembly of rogue officers, quote, who tortured them all under the authority of a badge which they disgraced, end quote, U.S. Attorney Darren LaMarca said. Federal court records detail how they burst into the home without a warrant and tortured Jenkins and Parker before the shooting. As Jenkins lay bleeding, the officers knew the mission had gone too far. Instead of coming clean, they devised a hasty cover-up that included a fictitious narcotics bust, stolen surveillance footage, and threats. The officers warned Jenkins and Parker to, quote, stay out of Rankin County and go back to Jackson or their side of the Pearl River, end quote, court documents say, referencing an area with higher concentrations of black residents. Kristen Clark, head of the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division, said the trauma, quote, is magnified because the misconduct was fueled by racial bias and hatred, end quote, that recalled the 1964 kidnapping and killing of 3 civil rights workers. After Denman summoned the Goon Squad, the officers crept around the ranch-style home to avoid a surveillance camera. They kicked down the carport and burst inside without a warrant. And again, this is going to be, trigger warning. Viewer discretion advised. Updike found a sex toy, which he mounted on a nearby BB gun, and forced into Parker's mouth. Dedman tried to sexually assault Jenkins with it. The officers electrocuted the victims with stun guns, comparing whose weapons were more powerful. Elward forced Jenkins on his knees for a mock execution, intending to fire the gun without a bullet. But it was loaded and discharged, cutting Jenkins' tongue, breaking his jaw, and exiting through his neck. As Jenkins bled on the floor, the officers devised a cover story for investigators. Elward brought Jenkins into a side room to stage a drug bust over the phone and said Jenkins reached for a gun when he was released from handcuffs. Afterward, McAlpin and Middleton made a promise. They would kill any of the officers who told the truth about what happened. The officers kept quiet as pressure mounted from a Justice Department civil rights probe. One of them came forward in June, Sheriff Bailey said. Now they'll be treated as the criminals they are, U.S. Attorney LaMarca said. Oh, and I guess that's it. I didn't think that was the end of the article, but it is. Okay, so I'm going to just scroll up and show some of the pictures. So this is Jermica Fomby, special agent in charge of the FBI Jackson field office, speaks Thursday about an investigation into 6 white former law enforcement officers in Mississippi, which is in Jackson, Mississippi. I attempted to find this, and I could not find this press conference. If anyone has the ability to find it, please email me, but I was not able to find that press conference. This is a photo of Michael Corey Jenkins, who was one of those men tortured. And again, protests did go on to demand justice. And actually, I just realized in this photo, you can actually see where I believe the bullet exited Mr. Jenkins' neck. You can see the scar there. And again, I would assume that's the scar because it said the bullet did exit his neck. And again, another photo of the press conference. Okay, so we are going to go next to the criminal complaint, but I'm going to check out chat quickly just because I did see comments, a bunch of comments coming through. Yes, Brandy. And I did see Pascal talk about it the other day. And this is a story that I've been meaning to talk about because I saw it on the nightly news a few weeks ago, and just other things came up. And it's almost like the universe knows that I need to wait to talk about these things because they just pled guilty. So, yes, but I haven't seen, Pascal's the only person that I've seen talk about it, which, you know, is a little disappointing. Hey, blank screen. Dutch Oma, hello. Slime News, hello. And I do have a video of them in court. Brandy, you said WAPT. I might have that, but I'm gonna go to YouTube and actually look to see, because again, there is I was trying to find the actual court hearing, but oh wait. Oh, here it is. Okay, so this might be the one I have. It looks familiar. But if not, we can watch that one as well. So thank you for that. Yeah, blank screen. And they should not be in protective custody. Let them out. Let them out in general population. They want to act like goons. They can be treated like goons. And Rowdy, that was just the phone call that came in. I don't know if there's any truth to that. All right. So again, thank you for being here, everyone. I appreciate it. So this again, thank you to Bash for getting me the criminal complaint. I am going to read through this. It is lengthy. And again, viewer discretion advised. I just want to give a blanket statement. Any comments that I feel or my mods feel are inappropriate or racially motivated in nature will be removed. If those comments continue, you will be sent to timeout. You will not be blocked, but you will be sent to timeout. I know that emotions can get very heightened in these types of cases, but I am not going to tolerate any racial remarks that are inappropriate or offensive. With that being said, let's look into this. So this was filed July 31st, 2023. So that was 2 weeks ago, yesterday. And so you have Brett Morris McAlpin, Jeffrey Arwood Middleton, Christian Lee Dedman, Hunter Thomas Elward, Daniel Reddy Updike, and Joshua Allen Hartfield. General allegations: at all times relevant to this information unless otherwise specified. Relevant background. Okay, so we have Brett McAlpin was employed as the chief investigator with the Rankin County Sheriff's Office in Rankin County, Mississippi. Jeffrey Middleton was employed as a lieutenant with the Rankin County Sheriff's Office. Christian Lee Dedman was employed as a narcotics investigator by the Rankin County Sheriff's Office. Hunter Thomas Elward, and actually let me I was just looking at my phone. Let me make this a little bit bigger. I'm going to move myself down a little bit. Excuse me. Okay, so I did Christian. Hunter Thomas Elward was employed as a patrol deputy with the Rankin County Sheriff's Office. Daniel Reddy Updike was employed as a patrol deputy with the Rankin County Sheriff's Office, and Joshua Allen Hartfield was employed as a narcotics investigator with the Richland Police Department. Oh, blank screen, she won't. And blank screen, have you seen her documents? I couldn't send them through Twitter, and I don't know your email, if you even have one, because I was going to send you the documents. The property. So the property located at 135 Connerly Road in Braxton, Rankin County, Mississippi, is a 4-bedroom ranch-style home owned by KW, a white woman. In January 2023, 2 black men, MJ and EP, were residing at the property. EP was a longtime friend of KW's and was helping care for KW. MJ was residing at the property temporarily. The complaint. On January 24th, 2023, Brett Morris McAlpin, the chief investigator for the Rankin County Sheriff's Office, received a complaint from one of his white neighbors in Braxton, Mississippi. Neighbor told McAlpin, among other things, that several black males had been staying at the property and that neighbor had observed suspicious behavior. That evening, McAlpin directed RCSO investigator Christian Lee Dedman to take care of it. So I'm wondering, based on this, I'm wondering if Mr. McAlpin received a phone call from the neighbor saying, hey, this is what's going on. Or if the neighbor called the actual police department. That's unclear in that paragraph. The Goon Squad. Dedman reached out to a shift of officers who called themselves the Goon Squad because of their willingness to use excessive force and not to report it. The Goon Squad was led by Lieutenant Jeffrey Arwood Middleton, and during the time material to this information, it consisted of Deputy Hunter Thomas Elward, Deputy Daniel Reddy Updike, and other RCSO deputies known to the United States Attorney. The mission. At 9:28 p.m., Dedman sent a group message to 3 members of the Goon Squad, Middleton, Elward, and Updike. Dedman's message read, "Are y'all available for a mission?" Dedman messaged the group that they were going to the property on Connerly Road and warned them, quote, "There is a chance of cameras. Let's approach east and work easy," end quote. The defendants understood work easy to mean knock on the door rather than kick it in. Elward texted back an eye roll emoji, and Updike tested a gif of a baby crying. Dedman messaged the group, quote, "If we don't see cameras, go," end quote. The defendants understood that to mean if they did not see surveillance cameras at the property, then they should enter without a warrant. Dedman messaged the group, "No bad mugshots." The defendants understood no bad mugshots to be a green light to use excessive force on parts of the body not captured by a mugshot. The staging and approach. Middleton, Elward, and Updike met at the Cato Volunteer Fire Department in Braxton, the agreed-upon staging area, and waited for Dedman to join them. Dedman radioed the group that he had someone with him who would cover the back door of the property during their initial entry. That someone was Richland Police Department officer Joshua Allen Hartfield, who was riding with Dedman. Dedman and Hartfield drove by the staging area in Dedman's truck. Middleton, Elward, and Updike each pulled out of the staging area in their RCSO-issued vehicles and followed closely behind Dedman's truck. Shortly thereafter, Dedman, Hartfield, Elward, Updike, and Middleton, in 4 vehicles, arrived at the property and pulled into the driveway. McAlpin, who had been surveilling the property from down the street, pulled into the driveway behind them. Yeah, Kay, I'm gonna bet, like Sinner and Slime News says, most likely a lot. And like, this is really, I mean, I haven't read this. So again, I guarantee that the details are going to be awful. And so again, you know, that trigger warning is going, or viewer discretion advised. I have the trigger warning pinned. But this needs to be talked about for sure. The warrantless entry. Noticing a surveillance camera above the front door of the property, Deadman, Elward, and Updike walked around to the carport door, which had no surveillance camera covering it, and Hartfield walked around to the back door, which also had no surveillance camera covering it. Deadman and Updike each kicked the carport door, but it did not open. Elward then took a turn kicking the carport door, and it busted open. Hartfield kicked the back door, and it swung open. The defendants then entered the house, Hartfield through the back door, and the other 5 defendants through the door to the carport door. The defendants did not have a warrant to enter the house, and there was no exigent circumstances that would authorize their entry without a warrant. The tasings and false arrests. When Deadman, Elward, and Updike entered the house through the carport door, they saw 2 black men inside, MJ and EP. The defendants shouted orders at MJ and EP, and they both complied. Deadman tased MJ, handcuffed him, and placed him under arrest without probable cause to believe that he had committed a crime. After MJ was in handcuffs, Deadman continued to tase him multiple times. Elward tased EP, handcuffed him, and placed him under arrest without probable cause to believe that he had committed a crime. After EP was in handcuffs, Elward continued to tase him multiple times. Updike kicked EP in the ribs. The first shooting. Deadman walked over to EP and demanded to know where the drugs were. EP replied there were no drugs. Deadman took out his gun, pointed it toward the back of the house, and pulled the trigger. The gun discharged, and the bullet lodged in the wall of the adjoining laundry room. Deadman again demanded to know where the drugs were. EP again replied there were no drugs. The racial taunting. The defendants grabbed MJ and EP, who were still handcuffed, and brought them to the living room. The defendants, all of whom are white, called MJ and EP racial slurs, including the N-word, monkey, and boy, accused them of taking advantage of the white woman who owned the house, and warned them to stay out of Rankin County and go back to Jackson or to their side of the Pearl River, areas with higher concentrations of black residents. As defendants were taunting MJ and EP, Deadman repeatedly drive-stunned MJ with his taser. Okay, so here we have the adult toy. I'm going to call it the adult toy. During a search of the house, Updike kicked in the padlocked door to the front bedroom. Inside, he found a white flesh-toned adult toy and a BB gun. Updike mounted the adult toy onto the end of the BB gun and brought the adult toy into the living room where MJ and EP were handcuffed and seated on the couch. Updike forced the adult toy into the mouth of EP and attempted to force said toy into the mouth of MJ. Deadman grabbed the adult toy from Updike, slapped MJ and EP in the face with it, and taunted them. Deadman forced MJ and EP onto their knees with their backs to Deadman, and Deadman threatened to sexually assault them anally with the adult toy. Deadman grabbed the back of MJ's pants and moved the adult toy toward his backside, but Deadman stopped when he noticed that MJ had defecated on himself. Oh my God, these poor people, these poor guys. Oh. The abuse. MJ and EP, still handcuffed, were forced onto their backs on the floor of the living room. Elward held them down, and Dedmon poured milk, alcohol, and chocolate syrup on their faces and into their mouths, forcing MJ and EP to involuntarily ingest milk, alcohol, and syrup. And Dedmon poured cooking grease on EP's head. Elward threw eggs at MJ and EP. The showering. Defendants ordered MJ and EP to strip naked and shower off to wash away any evidence of abuse before MJ and EP were brought to jail. While MJ and EP were showering off, Hartfield guarded the bathroom door to make sure they did not escape. After MJ and EP showered off and changed into clean underwear and sweats, they were brought to the side bedroom. The beatings. Updike grabbed a wooden kitchen implement and struck EP with it. Middleton grabbed a metal sword and assaulted EP with it. Dedmon and McAlpin grabbed pieces of wood and struck EP in the back with them. The taser torture. MJ and EP were handcuffed and forced to sit down on the floor of the side of the bedroom. MJ and EP were handcuffed and forced to sit down on the floor of the side bedroom. Pointing out that MJ and EP had been tased by both RCSO-issued tasers and an RPD-issued taser, the defendants decided to test their tasers on MJ and EP to see which one was the most powerful. At this point, Dedmon, Middleton, Hartfield, and Elward tased MJ and EP repeatedly. Elward's taser was discharged 8 times. Hartfield's taser was discharged 5 times. And Dedmon's taser was discharged 4 times. The thefts. McAlpin and Middleton left the side bedroom and walked to the front bedroom to steal personal property that had caught their attention during an earlier search of the house. McAlpin and Middleton each stole rubber bar mats, brought them out to their vehicles, and then came back inside. McAlpin was about to steal a Class A military uniform when he heard 2 gunshots coming from the direction of the side bedroom where the other 4 defendants were detaining MJ and EP. The mock execution and shootings. The first gunshot was discharged by Dedmon, who stepped from the side bedroom into the adjoining carport, pulling out his gun and fired into the yard. Elward surreptitiously removed a bullet from the chamber of his gun. Elward forced MJ onto his knees, stuck the gun into MJ's mouth, and pulled the trigger. The unloaded gun clicked, but did not discharge. Elward racked the slide, intending to dry fire a second time. When Elward put the gun back into MJ's mouth and pulled the trigger, the gun discharged. The bullet lacerated MJ's tongue, broke his jaw, and exited out of his neck. The cover story. As MJ was bleeding on the floor, not receiving medical attention, the defendants huddled up on the rear screened-in porch and devised a false cover story to cover up their misconduct. In order to cover up their entry into the property without a warrant, the defendants agreed to tell investigators that when the defendants arrived at the house, they observed a black male, later identified as MJ, in the driveway. That Dedmon obtained MJ's consent to search his pockets and found 2 baggies of methamphetamine, and that MJ fled into the house and Dedmon ran after him. In order to cover up Elward's shooting of MJ, the defendants agreed to tell investigators that Elward brought MJ into the side bedroom to conduct a controlled drug buy over the phone, that Elward had removed MJ's handcuffs, that MJ had reached for a gun, and that Elward shot MJ in self-defense. In order to limit the number of witnesses to the shooting, the defendants agreed to tell investigators that, at the time of the shooting, McAlpin and Middleton had left the property and were driving home. Dedmon and Hartfield were at Dedmon's truck, and Updike was escorting EP to a patrol car. The cover-up. The defendants then planted and tampered with evidence to corroborate their false cover story and cover up their misconduct. Middleton offered to plant a throwdown gun on MJ. Middleton kept in his patrol car a Titan Tiger .38 special snub-nosed revolver with serial number that was not registered to him in case a gun needed to be planted on a victim. Wow. I'm going to read that again. Middleton offered to plant a throwdown gun on MJ. Middleton kept in his patrol car a Titan Tiger 38 special snub-nose revolver that was not registered to him in case a gun needed to be planted on a victim. Elwood responded that he would use the BB gun on which they had mounted the adult toy during the assaults in the living room. Elwood grabbed the BB gun and brought it to the side bedroom where MJ was still bleeding from the mouth and neck and was still not receiving any medical attention. Elwood removed MJ's handcuffs and planted the BB gun next to MJ. Dedmon picked up a spent taser cartridge and got rid of them. McAlpin ordered Updike to take EP from the side bedroom, put him in the back of Updike's patrol car, and then lock the back door so McAlpin could talk to EP. McAlpin opened the back door of Updike's patrol car and pressured EP to go along with the cover story. McAlpin suggested to EP that if EP stuck to the cover story, then McAlpin would make sure that EP would be released from jail. Aware that his RCSO vehicle had a GPS tracking system, McAlpin left the scene to corroborate his cover story that he had not been present during the shooting. McAlpin told Dedmon that he was leaving and instructed Dedmon to call him in a few minutes. McAlpin drove away, Dedmon called him, and then McAlpin returned to the scene. Hey guys, everybody coming in, thank you for being here. And again, trigger warning, viewer discretion advised. Hey Denise. Hartfield retrieved the soiled clothes that MJ and EP had been wearing when they were abused. Hartfield took the clothes outside and tried to light them on fire, but they were too wet. Hartfield threw the clothes into the woods behind the house. Hartfield removed the hard drive from the home surveillance system and put it in Dedmon's truck. Later that night, Hartfield threw the hard drive into Steen Creek in Florence, Mississippi. Updike searched the hallway for the shell casing from Dedmon's first shooting. Updike found the shell casing, picked it up, and put it in his pocket. Later that night, Updike put the shell casing in a water bottle, secured the top, and threw the bottle into tall grass on the side of Cato Road in Braxton, Mississippi. The defendants searched for the shell casing from Dedmon's second shooting, but they could find only one shell casing in the side bedroom, and they assumed that shell casing was from Elwood's shooting of MJ. Dedmon volunteered to take care of the drugs. Dedmon retrieved some methamphetamine he had previously obtained from a subject-turned-informant, but had not entered into evidence, divided it into 2 baggies, and submitted them to the crime lab as belonging to MJ. McAlpin and Middleton each threatened the other officers that if any of them told the truth about what happened that night, McAlpin and Middleton would find out and kill them. The false reports and false charges. Stella Bella, I don't know this to be true, but I have a feeling that they have gotten away with this before. I just can't believe what I'm reading. I mean, I'm just saying based on what I've read so far, I believe that they have done this before. Because this was very calculated and planned. Yeah. So the false reports and false charges. Each defendant wrote and submitted a report documenting the false cover story. On January 25th, 2023, Elwood signed a sworn affidavit that MJ committed felony aggravated assault on a police officer in violation of Mississippi Code 97-3-72. Under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to the value of human life by obtaining a firearm, then pointing it in the direction of Deputy Elwood. Upon the filing of Elwood's affidavit, MJ was charged with felony aggravated assault on a police officer. The maximum punishment for that offense is 30 years in prison. On January 25th, 2023, Dedmon signed a sworn affidavit that MJ committed felony possession of methamphetamine in violation of Mississippi Code 41-29-139C. Upon the filing of Dedmon's affidavit, MJ was charged with felony possession of methamphetamine. The maximum punishment for that offense is 8 years in prison. On January 25th, 2023, Dedmon signed a sworn affidavit that MJ committed misdemeanor disorderly conduct in violation of Mississippi Code 97-35-7 by refusing to follow verbal commands and stop running after locating a felony amount of methamphetamine on his person. Upon the filing of Dedmon's affidavit, MJ was charged with misdemeanor disorderly conduct. The maximum punishment for that offense is 1 year in prison. MJ was detained on those false charges at the University of Mississippi Medical Center until he posted a bond and was released from law enforcement custody. The false misdemeanor charge against MJ remained pending until June 30th, 2023, when a Rankin County Justice Court clerk approved its immediate remand. The false felony charges against MJ remained pending until July 5th, 2023, when a Rankin County court judge ordered the charges remanded to the files of the Rankin County Circuit Court. The false statements to investigators. Each defendant was interviewed separately by agents with the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, the law enforcement agency in Mississippi with authorities to investigate officer-involved shootings. During those interviews, each defendant stuck to the cover story and gave a false account to investigators. Count 1. Conspiracy against rights. 18 U.S.C. 241. Paragraphs 1 through 81 of this information are realleged and fully incorporated herein by reference. On or about January 24th, 2023, in Rankin County, in the Northern Division of the Southern District of Mississippi, defendants Brett McAlpin, Jeffrey Middleton, Christian Dedmon, Hunter Elward, Daniel Updike, and Joshua Hartfield, while acting under color of law, knowingly and willfully conspired and agreed to injure, oppress, threaten, and intimidate MJ and EP in their free exercise and enjoyment of the right secured to them by the Constitution and laws of the United States to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures, which includes the right to be free from unlawful warrantless entry into a home and from the use of unreasonable force by a law enforcement officer. In furtherance of the conspiracy and to effect these objects thereof, the defendants committed in the Southern District of Mississippi the overt acts set forth in paragraphs 21 through 56 of this information. Hey, Candy Kitten. Hey, Bernadette. Kathy P., YouTube Duckery, welcome, and everyone else who may be here, hello. Pardon me while I get a drink. And we're only on page 13 of 34, although the last few pages are just showing the charges again. But this is really messed up. Count 2, deprivation of rights under color of law. Paragraphs 1 through 81 of this information are realleged and fully incorporated herein by reference. On or about January 24th, 2023, in Rankin County, in the Northern Division of the Southern District of Mississippi, said defendants, while acting under color of law and aiding and abetting one another, willfully deprived MJ of the right secured and protected by the Constitution and laws of the United States to be free from unreasonable seizures, which includes the right to be free from the use of unreasonable force by a law enforcement officer. Specifically, the defendants, 1, physically assaulted MJ while he was handcuffed and compliant by punching and kicking him, tasing him, throwing eggs at him, and pouring milk, alcohol, and chocolate syrup over his head and into his mouth. And 2, failed to intervene to protect MJ from being assaulted despite the opportunity to do so. This offense involved the use of dangerous weapons and resulted in bodily injury to MJ, all in violation of Title 18 United States Code sections 242 and 2. Count 3, deprivation of rights under color of law. Paragraphs 1 through 81 of this information are realleged and fully incorporated herein by reference. On or about January 24th, 2023, in Rankin County, in the Northern Division of the Southern District of Mississippi, said defendants, while acting under color of law and aiding and abetting one another, willfully deprived EP of the right, secured and protected by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, to be free from unreasonable seizures, which includes the right to be free from the use of unreasonable force by a law enforcement officer. Specifically, the defendants 1. Physically assaulted EP while he was handcuffed and compliant by punching and kicking him, striking him with objects including a metal sword, pieces of wood, and a wooden kitchen implement, tasing him, throwing eggs at him, and pouring milk, alcohol, and chocolate syrup over his head and into his mouth. And 2. Failed to intervene to protect EP from being assaulted despite the opportunity to do so. This offense involved the use of dangerous weapons and resulted in bodily injury to EP. All in violation of Title 18, United States Code Sections 242 and 2. Count 4. Again, paragraphs 1 through 81 of this information are realleged and fully incorporated herein by reference. On or about January 24th, 2023, in Rankin County, in the Northern Division of Southern District of Mississippi, defendant Christian Dedman, while acting under color of law, willfully deprived EP of the right, secured and protected by the Constitution and laws of the United States, to be free from unreasonable seizures. Specifically, Dedman discharged a firearm in close proximity to EP for the purpose of scaring EP. This offense involved the use of a dangerous weapon. All in violation of Title 18, United States Code Section 242. Count 5. Discharge of a firearm during a crime of violence. Paragraphs 1 through 81 of this information are realleged and fully incorporated herein by reference. On or about January 24th, 2023, in Rankin County, in the Northern Division of the Southern District of Mississippi, defendant Christian Dedman did knowingly use, carry, brandish, and discharge a firearm, to wit, a Glock 17 Gen 5 9mm caliber pistol, serial number, during and in relation to a crime of violence for which the defendant may be prosecuted in a court of the United States, to wit, deprivation of rights under color of law under Title 18, United States Code Section 242, as charged in Count 4 of this information. And again, all in violation of Title 18, United States Code Section 924C1A. Hey, Crimes and Fashion. Welcome. Hey, Professor Kate. Count 6. Again, paragraphs 1 through 81 of this information are alleged and fully incorporated herein by reference. On or about January 24th, 2023, in Rankin County, in the Northern Division of the Southern District of Mississippi, defendants Christian Dedman, Hunter Elward, and Daniel Updike, while acting under color of law and aiding and abetting one another, willfully deprived EP of the right, secured and protected by the Constitution and laws of the United States, not to be deprived of liberty without due process of law, which includes the right to bodily integrity. Specifically, Dedman and Updike assaulted EP in the mouth and face with a adult toy without EP's consent or legitimate law enforcement purpose, and Elward failed to intervene to protect EP from being assaulted with said toy, despite the opportunity to do so. This offense involved the use of dangerous weapon and resulted in bodily injury to EP, all in violation of Title 18, United States Code Sections 242 and 2. Count 7. Deprivation of rights under color of law. Paragraphs 1 through 81 of this indictment are realleged and fully incorporated herein by reference. On or about January 24th, 2023, in Rankin County, in the Northern Division of the Southern District of Mississippi, defendants Christian Dedman, Hunter Elward, and Daniel Updike, while acting under color of law and aiding and abetting one another, willfully deprived MJ of the right, secured and protected by the Constitution and laws of the United States, not to be deprived of liberty without due process of law, which includes the right to bodily integrity. Specifically, Dedman and Updike assaulted MJ in the mouth and face with an adult toy without MJ's consent or a legitimate law enforcement purpose, and Elward failed to intervene to protect MJ from being assaulted with said toy, despite the opportunity to do so. This offense involved the use of a dangerous weapon and resulted in bodily injury to MJ, all in violation of Title 18, United States Code Sections 242 and 2. Count 8. Deprivation of rights under color of law. Paragraphs 1 through 81 of this information are realleged and fully incorporated herein by reference. On or about January 24, 2023, in Rankin County, in the Northern Division of the Southern District of Mississippi, Defendant Hunter Elward, while acting under color of law, willfully deprived MJ of the right secured and protected by the Constitution and laws of the United States to be free from unreasonable seizures, which includes the right to be free from the use of unreasonable force by a law enforcement officer. Specifically, Elward forced his gun into MJ's mouth and pulled the trigger. The gun discharged and the bullet lacerated MJ's tongue, broke MJ's jaw, and exited out of MJ's neck. This offense involved the use of a dangerous weapon, all in violation of Title 18, United States Code Section 242. Count 9. Discharge of a firearm during a crime of violence. Paragraphs 1 through 81 of this information are realleged and fully incorporated herein by reference. On or about January 24, 2023, in Rankin County in the Northern Division of the Southern District of Mississippi, Defendant Hunter Thomas Elward did knowingly use, carry, brandish, and discharge a firearm, to wit, a Glock 17 Gen 5 9mm caliber pistol, serial number, during and in relation to a crime of violence for which the defendant may be prosecuted in a court of the United States, to wit, deprivation of rights under color of law under Title 18, United States Code Section 242, as charged in Count 8 of the information, all in violation of Title 18, United States Code Section 924 C1A. Count 10. Deprivation of rights under color of law. Paragraphs 1 through 81 of this information are realleged and fully incorporated herein by reference. On or about January 24, 2023, in Rankin County in the Northern Division of the Southern District of Mississippi, defendants Brett Morris McAlpin, actually I'm just going to say said defendants, while acting under color of law, willfully deprived MJ of the right secured and protected by the Constitution and laws of the United States not to be deprived of liberty without due process of law, which includes an arrestee's right to be free from a law enforcement officer's deliberate indifference to his serious medical needs. Specifically, after Elward shot MJ in the mouth and MJ was bleeding from the mouth and neck in clear need of medical care, the defendants attempted to cover up their misconduct rather than provide MJ with medical care, thereby acting with deliberate indifference to the substantial risk of harm to MJ. This offense resulted in bodily injury to MJ, all in violation of Title 18, United States Code, Section 242. Count 11, conspiracy to obstruct justice. Paragraphs 1 through 81 of this information are realleged and fully incorporated herein by reference. The conspiracy and its objects. From on or about January 24th, 2023, through on or about April 2023 in Rankin County in the Northern Division of the Southern District of Mississippi, said defendants knowingly and willfully conspired and agreed to knowingly corruptly persuade, attempt to corruptly persuade, or engage in misleading conduct toward another person with the intent to hinder, delay, or prevent the communication to a federal law enforcement officer or judge of information relating to the commission or possible commission of a federal offense in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1512b3. Hey, Callie Dime. The purpose of the conspiracy. The purpose of the conspiracy was to cover up the defendant's official misconduct, including but not limited to with acts set for in paragraphs 21 through 56. The manner and means of the conspiracy. The manner and means by which the defendant sought to accomplish the objects and purpose of the conspiracy included devising a false cover story as set forth in paragraphs 57 through 60 of this information, and engaging in a variety of obstructive acts to corroborate that false cover story and cover up their misconduct as set forth in paragraphs 61 through 81 of this information. Overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. In furtherance of the conspiracy and to accomplish the objects thereof, the defendants committed the overt acts set forth in paragraphs 61 through 81 of this information, all in violation of Title 18, United States Code, Section 1512K. Count 12, obstruction of justice. Paragraphs 1 through 81 of this information are realleged and fully incorporated herein by reference. From on or above January 24th, 2023, and continuing to on or about February 3rd, 2023, in Rankin County in the Northern Division of the Southern District of Mississippi, said defendants, aiding and abetting one another, knowingly corruptly persuaded, attempt to corruptly persuade, and engaged in misleading conduct toward another person with the intent to hinder, delay, and prevent the communication to a federal law enforcement officer and judge of information relating to the commission and possible commission of a federal offense. Specifically, said defendants committed the obstructive acts set forth in paragraph 61 through 81 of this information, all in violation of Title 18, United States Code, Section 1512B3 and 2. Count 13, conspiracy against rights. Paragraphs 1 through 81 of this information are realleged and fully incorporated here by reference. From on or about January 24th, 2023 to on or about January 25th, 2023, in Rankin County in the Northern Division of the Southern District of Mississippi, said defendants knowingly and willfully conspired and agreed to injure, oppress, threaten, and intimidate MJ in his free exercise and enjoyment of the right secured to him by the Constitution and laws of the United States to be free from unreasonable seizures, which includes the right to be free from malicious prosecution. Specifically, the defendants conspired to charge MJ with felony assault on a police officer, felony possession of methamphetamine, and misdemeanor disorderly conduct, without probable cause to believe that MJ had committed those crimes. And Dedman and Elward knowingly included false and misleading information in the charging documents as set forth in paragraph 75 to 79. As a consequence, MJ was initially detained and deprived of liberty pending resolution of the charges, which were eventually dismissed, all in violation of Title 18, United States Code, Section 241. And I'm wondering, they must have been running out of ink or something. That's strange. Okay, so then let's see. What is this? Okay, so this says notice of maximum penalty. Okay, so these are the charges for each of them. All right, so that was a pretty lengthy criminal complaint. So now you have the notice of maximum penalty. So this is for Brett Morris McAlpin. So counts 1 and 13, conspiracy against rights, not more than 10 years imprisonment, not more than $250,000 fine, not more than 3 years unsupervised release, $100 special assessment each count. Counts 2, 3, and 10. Deprivation of rights under color of law. Not more than 10 years imprisonment, not more than $250,000 fine, not more than 3 years supervised release, $100 special assessment each count. So it looks like the conspiracy against rights and the deprivation of rights under color of law have the same punishments. Count 11, conspiracy to obstruct justice. Not more than 20 years imprisonment, not more than $250,000 fine, not more than 3 years unsupervised release, $100 special assessment. Yes, Little Ray of Sunshine, I did hear about it, and I can't do that story. It's just too much for me. Count 12, obstruction of justice. Not more than 20 years imprisonment, not more than $250,000 fine, not more than 3 years unsupervised release, and $100 special assessment. So I'm wondering, and actually that's not, okay, so I'm going to hold that because I was thinking about something different. So it looks like Jeffrey R. Middleton is being charged with those same things. So okay, so now this one, yes. So Jeffrey R. Middleton is the same as the previous. Christian Lee Deadman. Okay, so this is where it changes. So this one, so Brett was counts 1 and 13, 2, 3, and 10, 11. So he has a total of 6 counts. And, 7 counts. Okay, so he had 7. Jeffrey has 6 counts. Okay, so this is going to be a little confusing. I need a spreadsheet for this. So Christian Lee Deadman, counts 1 and 13, conspiracy against rights, not more than 10 years, not more than $250,000 fine, not more than 3 years unsupervised or supervised release, and then a $100 special assessment each count. Also, so now he has counts 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 10, deprivation of rights under color of law. So for each of those counts, it's that not more than 10 years, the fine, the 3 years, etc. He also has count 5, use and carry and brandish and discharge of a firearm during a crime of violence, conspiracy to obstruct justice, obstruction of justice. So Mr. Deadman, who is I would assume he is the lead goon, because Mr. Deadman is who called up his posse to see if they were up for a, quote, mission. So he's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So he didn't have count 8 or 9. So he didn't have count 8 and 9, which I don't see on any of theirs either. Okay, so I'm not sure what count in 8. Oh, here's count 8. Okay, so this dude had count 8. All right, so I'm not going to read all of these because it looks like that's pretty much, just depending on what part they had in the torture, they had different counts. So this criminal case cover sheet, okay, this is just... Oh, so these are just kind of summarizing. So this is Brett Morris McAlpin, U.S. Attorney information. And then this is just saying the charges again, similar to what they did before. And again, that's for each of them. And that's it. All right, so that is the criminal complaint. We're going to go back to the slideshow because I do have a few videos. I am going to skip the longer video because I feel like the criminal complaint actually talked about what we needed to know about the situation. Hey, Leo, you changed your picture. I love it. Aw, that's great. That's great, Leo. And I'm definitely thinking of the people of Maui, and I will be doing an update tomorrow on that.
Aaron, that's exactly right. These 6 former law enforcement officers here in Rankin County pled guilty to those federal charges, but today the state is looking to charge them as well. Now, federal prosecutors say the ex-officers who called themselves the Goon Squad brutalized Eddie Parker and Michael Jenkins at a home in Braxton back in January. Court documents show the men used stun guns, and one even shot Jenkins in the mouth. The documents also show the men went as far as trying to cover it up by planting evidence and lying to investigators.
If I had to see them again, I would probably just start praying. I'd probably be scared out of my body.
It's been a long time coming, so long coming, waiting on, this outcome, for everything that we said, happened, everything that we, felt that happened. I mean, it's still a surreal, feeling. I mean, a dream that we still dream about.
The 6 men have been in jail since entering their guilty pleas earlier this month. They are set to be sentenced in November on federal charges, but their court appearance today is again for separate state charges. We'll keep you guys updated as we learn more about these new charges. Live in Rankin County, Madeline Nolan, 16 WAPT News.
All right, pause. All right, so we're going to go over here. So this is an article from, where is this from? WAPT News. And former deputies officer plead guilty to state charges in assault on 2 black men and subsequent cover-up. Members of Goon Squad already pled guilty to federal charges. 6 former law enforcement officers who pleaded guilty to federal charges for brutalizing 2 black men are now pleading guilty to state charges. The former lawmen who called themselves the Goon Squad are accused of beating and torturing Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker for 2 hours in January at a home in Braxton. According to court documents, the former law enforcement officers used stun guns on the 2 men, waterboarded them, and shot Jenkins in the mouth. The former deputies, Brett McAlpin, Jeffrey Middleton, Christian Lee Dedman, Hunter Thomas Elward, and Daniel Updike, along with former Richland K-9 officer Joshua Hartfield, will be sentenced on the federal charges in November. McAlpin, Middleton, Updike, and Hartfield pleaded guilty Monday to state charges of hindering prosecution and conspiracy to hinder prosecution during Monday's hearing in Rankin County Court, and we will watch these videos. Dedman pleaded guilty to burglary, home invasion, and conspiracy to hinder prosecution. Elward, who is accused of shooting Jenkins in the mouth, pleaded guilty to aggravated assault, burglary, home invasion, and conspiracy to hinder prosecution. My question is, why wasn't he charged with attempted murder? Because when you shoot someone in the mouth, you usually intend to kill them, in my opinion. When they went before the judge on Monday, they were all handcuffed and wearing jail uniforms with duct tape covering the names of the facilities where they are being held. The judge said sentencing would be set at a later date. Quote, "Today, a strong message has been sent. Abuse of power will not be tolerated in Mississippi." End quote. Attorney General Lynn Fitch said in a statement. The 6 officers who committed these heinous acts caused more than physical harm. They severed the vital trust with the people and they pledged to protect. That is bizarre. And that was, who brought that up? Somebody in chat had mentioned it. And I know it's really far up. So if whoever said about the duct tape is still here, just remind me that it was you. Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey released a statement after the former deputies pleaded guilty to state charges, saying he hopes it brings justice for the victims. In one of our first public statements, we said, if any deputy or suspect involved in this incident is found to have broken the law, he will be held accountable in accordance with the law. I believe today's guilty pleas show the community that our system of checks and balances is effective. An unbiased and impartial investigation into these former officers uncovered their criminal actions, Bailey said in a statement. Bailey went on to say that the Rankin County Sheriff's Office continues to evaluate and update its policies, procedures, and training for all employees. The 6 men have been in jail since entering their guilty pleas in federal court. All right, so we're going to take a look at these videos.
I lost my wife and my daughter.
And I apologize. I think we're going to have to watch this ad every single time. Oh, dang it.
Want to fight so that they won't have to go through.
This court's not bound by any plea bargaining agreement to impose the maximum sentence here. Yes, sir. You also understand if they accept your pleas, you have no right to appeal. Yes. You satisfy your attorney's representation? Yes, sir. You making complaints about them? You have any questions about your right? What's the recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor. As part of the global agreement with state and federal charges, the state recommends and the defendant agrees in count 1 to sentence the.
And this is them, not me. I'm not sure what's happening with their...
Classified the charges as crimes of violence under Mississippi Code Section 97.3-2. All counts will run concurrent to one another and concurrent to the sentence to be imposed for charges brought against the defendant by the United States government. The defendant will pay a $5,000 fine and a assessment to the Mississippi
Oh my
Crime
gosh,
Victims
okay.
Compensation Fund.
We're going to skip that one. I don't know what's going on with their camera, but that is awful. So we'll go to this one and hope it's better. Oh my God, that's loud. I'm so sorry. Jesus. I hate that. It's the same thing with commercials. When I had cable, like the TV show would be like, you know, at a good volume, and then the commercial would just be like blaring. I am so sorry for people who I may have blown out their eardrums.
As part of a global agreement with state and federal charges, the state recommends and the defendant agrees in count 1.
Isn't that bizarre? Like, why would they cover up where they're being held? That is very bizarre.
To a sentence of 15 years, with 10 years suspended and 5 years to serve, followed by 5 years of post-release supervision. And in count 2, 5 years to serve.
So, Lisa, I don't know about the top stick wardrobe tape in jail, but I have never seen where someone's being held covered up with duct tape so that you don't know where they're being held. That's bizarre.
The parties stipulate that the court will classify the charges as crimes of violence under Mississippi Code 97.3.2. All counts will run concurrent to one another and concurrent to the sentence to be imposed for charges brought against this defendant by the United States government. The defendant will pay a $5,000 fine and $1,000 to the Mississippi Crime Victims Compensation Fund. The defendant will permanently surrender his law enforcement certificate.
Is that the recommendation you expected to hear? Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Reynolds, is that what you expect to hear also?
It is, Your Honor.
At this point, it's not too late to stop the hearing. But it will be if I set you guilty plea. I want to make sure you're going to plead guilty. You want to plead guilty?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you have any questions? How do you plead to count 1, hindering prosecution in the first degree, guilty or not guilty?
Yes.
And then count 2, how do you plead to conspiracy to commit hindering prosecution in the first degree, guilty or not guilty? Any reason why I could not accept these pleas?
No, sir.
Right, so that's that one. Oh. All right, so then I'm assuming the other ones are the same, so we're gonna actually oh, so wait, but this one doesn't. Oh, that one just has, so that's county jail. They covered up the county jail. The one we just watched was completely covered up. This one doesn't even have a name on them. What the heck? So they're all maybe being held in different... Wait a minute. Let me look at... That is so weird. All right, let's take a look at this one.
I lost my wife and my daughter due to this. I just want to fight so that they won't have to go through.
The bill of information has been signed today and entered today. All right, at this point, it's not too late to stop hearing, but it will be if I accept your guilty plea. I want to make sure you're plead guilty. You want to plead guilty?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, is that the recommendation you expected to hear?
Yes, Your Honor.
Also, is that what you expect to hear also?
It is, Your Honor.
All right, do you have any questions?
No, Your Honor.
All right, how do you plead? Count 1, hindering prosecution in the first degree, guilty or not guilty? And count 2, conspiracy to commit hindering prosecution in the first degree. How do you plead guilty or not guilty? Any reason why I could not accept these pleas? No, Your Honor. Court advises defendants please guilty are free to voluntarily, knowingly, intelligently made to enter further fines and have a factual basis for therefore accepting defendants pleas of guilty and adjudicating him guilty of count 1, hindering prosecution in the first degree, and guilty of count 2, the conspiracy to commit hindering prosecution in the first degree. Judgment and conviction be entered in order of PSI and then sentencing at a later date.
It gets so loud. All right, so. Oh, and then this one is in a different. So I bet, and this is just my opinion, I think based on what their outfits are, they're being held in different jails in Mississippi. So they're not all being held together. Yeah. Inmates watching TV, but still you can tell, I mean, I don't know. And they're probably in protective custody anyways. I mean, I don't think they should be, but okay. And then we are going to, I actually have this, actually, we'll just watch this. Actually, we're going to go to my slideshow because we won't have to watch the ad. Give me 1 second. Oh, wait, I didn't put that. Oh, yes, I did. Here it is. Okay, so this, and actually this is showing them from the front. So this is a story I found from WAPT. So I believe it was Brandy. I don't know if Brandy is still here, but Brandy, thank you to Bash for letting me know that Brandy is the one who mentioned the duct tape and for also mentioning this video.
We're talking about 5 former Rankin County deputies, including the chief investigator and a former police officer with the Ridgeland Police Department. They're all admitting their role in the cover-up after the crime.
Hey, Wise Angel.
Goon squad in the hot seat, shackled and handcuffed with duct tape, concealing which county jail they're being held at. 6 former white Rankin County law enforcement officers led into a courtroom to plead guilty on state charges and what prosecutors call a racist torture session and sexual assault of 2 black men. The victims, Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, both in the courtroom to witness what their attorney called an historic moment.
We are ecstatic because, to my knowledge, never in the history of Mississippi have, in particular, white officers been held to account for brutality against black victims.
Former Rankin County Chief Investigator Brett McAlpin, Lieutenant Jeffrey Middleton, Christian Detman, who was a narcotics officer, Deputy Daniel Updike, and former Richland officer Joshua Hartfield, all pleading guilty to hindering prosecution and conspiracy to hinder prosecution. Authorities say the group tried to hatch a scheme to cover up the crime, destroy evidence, plus plant a weapon and drugs on the victim.
Oh, I just noticed his shirt or his shirt is inside out. So his wasn't covered up in duct tape because that's his tag. He has his shirt on inside out.
Victims. Authorities say former Deputy Hunter Elbert shot Michael Jenkins in the mouth after Jenkins had been handcuffed and tased. Elbert pleaded guilty to aggravated assault, burglary, home invasion, and hindering prosecution.
I enjoyed the view of seeing the shame, the walk of shame, the head down, the disgust that everybody that felt, for them and that they feel for themselves. I hope this is a lesson to everybody out there. Justice will be served.
Investigators say the Goon squad targeted Jenkins and Parker after they got a call about a house in the Braxton community on January 24th. They accused the men of taking advantage of the white woman whose house they were living in. Based on the new plea deals, most of the defendants won't spend much time in state prison.
Ugh.
That's raising questions about whether the disgraced former law officers.
So I'd like to know what pleading guilty, what kind of time they're looking at. And again, they still need to face federal charges, but that's not okay. If that's true, what this reporter is saying, that they're not going to be spending much time in jail or in prison, that's no bueno.
Are getting off easy.
Being given 10 years or recommended 10 years with 5 years suspended, or 15 years with 10 years suspended for assaulting someone, for murdering for shooting someone in the mouth, for tasing someone, for torturing someone. We know that that's not true justice.
Now, the 6 defendants will be sentenced on state charges later this year. They're also awaiting sentencing on federal charges. One interesting thing to note, federal prosecutors say there were members of the so-called Goon squad who were not present the night when Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker were assaulted. For now, we're live at the Rankin County Courthouse in Brandon. Ross Adams, 16 WAPT News.
Oh, dang it. All right, so that was the same one. So I'm actually going to go to, give me one moment. I've decided I want to show, I'm not going to show the whole video that I had, but it is a little bit of a longer video. Like it has, actually, no, we are going to watch this. It's only about 20 minutes. So again, some of it may be repetitive, but again, it's important. And especially for those of you coming in late, welcome. And this is the case of a so-called Goon squad, 6 law enforcement officers who tortured 2 black men after receiving a call that they were living with a white woman. Well, were seen with a white woman. And this is from Democracy Now! On YouTube. So if someone can drop the link to this channel, they actually cover a lot of different cases and they're very informative. They put together different clips from news organizations, and this one actually has a little bit of a longer interview with those who were affected. Yeah, exactly, Crimes in Fashion.
We turn now to Mississippi, where 6 white former police officers who...
And here they are, scum. And I'm going to call them that because they're a-holes. AKA the Goon Squad. And I'm wondering which one was the one. I think this is the one on the top right. I think he's the one who... Let me go back to find his name. Deadman. Deadman was like the lead goon, in my opinion. I'm wondering, I think it's this one on the top right, but I'm not sure.
Called themselves the Goon Squad, have pleaded guilty to raiding a home and torturing 2 black men earlier this year, after first trying to cover up their actions. Some of the officers face life in prison. On January 24th, court records show the deputies raided a home in Braxton, Mississippi, after a white neighbor of one of the officers called them to complain there were black men staying there. The officer texted the others, quote, "Are y'all available for a mission?" That night, without a warrant, the officers burst into the home, handcuffed, beat, tasered the 2 men, Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker. Also sexually abused them with a sex toy with shouting racial slurs.
And for those of you who may want to know the full details, I did read the criminal complaint, the arrest affidavit, at the beginning of this live. So, and I did edit it a little bit because, yeah.
One of the officers put a gun in Jenkins' mouth for a mock execution and pulled the trigger. The bullet lacerated Jenkins' tongue, broke his jaw, exited through his neck. This is U.S. Attorney Darren LaMarca last week announcing federal charges against the former officers for the attack.
But not only did they brazenly commit these acts, but after inflicting serious bodily injury by firing a shot through one of the victim's mouths, they left him lying in a pool of blood. Gathered on the porch of the house to discuss.
So Kelly Dime, yes. And they attempted to do other things, but Mr. Jenkins had defecated on himself, so they didn't do what they had planned on doing. Yeah, I agree, KB. Sounds like attempted murder to me.
How to cover it up. What indifference. What disregard for life.
After the attack, Michael Corey Jenkins was actually charged with a felony based on methamphetamine the officers said they found in the raid. But records show that was a lie, and the charge was dropped. In fact, the deputies planted drugs to devise an excuse for the raid and also stole surveillance video from the house.
And here are these a-holes, scumbags.
Their body cameras were off. Court documents said the officers used the name Goon.
I agree, Kathy. The same needs to be done to them. Eye for an eye.
Squad, quote, because of their willingness to use excessive force and not to report it. The Associated Press found the deputies were linked to at least 4 violent attacks on black men since 2019. 2 of the men.
And I'm wondering, so they said in that, they also had said in the earlier clip I showed, they're in connection with 4 other violent attacks. I want to know what's happening with those cases.
And died. For more, we're joined by Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker, as well as Malik Shabazz, a civil rights attorney with Black Lawyers for Justice, who's representing them. We welcome you all to Democracy Now! Malik, let's begin with you. Can you talk about how this case was exposed, how we saw these officers charged, and what you understand about their background, this not being the first vicious attack?
Okay. Thank you for having us on. I want to say before we get started that Michael and Eddie will only be speaking, that they cannot speak about the specific details of what happened in that house that night, but they can talk about their reactions to the guilty verdicts and to their pain and suffering. And Michael is suffering because half of his face is numb. But because we have sentencing coming up, so we're under certain sensitive legal guidelines. But we're happy to be on with such a progressive audience. This case was brought to light through the determination of Black Lawyers for Justice, of myself as the attorney for Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, and Mississippi Counsel Trent Walker. From early January, we have advocated strongly and vigorously in every way. And we have worked with community activists in Mississippi and throughout the country in order to bring the truth that is coming to light today, that these defendants, Hunter Elwood, Christian Dedman, Brett McAlpin, Middleton, Osdike, and Joshua Hartfield, that they're called the Rankin County Goon Squad. They're known in the community as the Rankin County Death Squad. This has been occurring for a long time under the leadership of Sheriff Brian Bailey, who should be the subject of.
All right, and I just want to share something because I was actually mistaken with who the head goon was. And thank you to Slime News for sending me this article. It's actually from People magazine, but it gives the names. It gives the names in order of photo. So I was wrong about who the quote head goon was. So here you have Brett McAlpin, top left, Hunter Elwood, Daniel Updike, Jeffrey Middleton, bottom left, Christian Dedman. Here's the head goon, the one that orchestrated this whole event, this man right here, and Joshua Hartfield.
Criminal investigation also. And they have been getting away with this so long that they felt emboldened to act in such a radical and callous way on that night of January 24th, 2023. But it's through persistence. It's through intense legal advocacy, with us advocating to the U.S. Justice Department, collecting evidence and applying legal pressure and all kinds of pressure to bring about what is now historic. Last Thursday, these 6 defendants pled guilty to 14 federal criminal charges. They'll plead guilty to more state charges Monday. This is the first time democracy now. This is the first time that a white Mississippi police officer has ever been held criminally responsible for harming a black person. And we know that plenty of police brutality has occurred not only in Rankin County under Brian Bailey, but throughout the state of Mississippi. This is a history-making moment. I'm just so sorry it had to come on the backs of the pain and the suffering, the torture and the shooting and the abuse and waterboarding of Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, our clients.
I can't bear to go to Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker meeting you in this way for what you went through that horrific January night.
Hey,
but I'm
Spring
wondering if each of you could respond.
And Wise Angel says, our police in the UK have very few powers. They rarely arrest anyone, so it seems. Kids are running amok, throwing stones in exit cars, starting fires here and there, burning out cars. That's crazy. Oh, yeah, Sinner, exactly. Anyone who's wondering what an actual advocate looks like, have a look at Malik Shabazz. Yes.
To the guilty plea of these officers and what it means to you that some of them may be facing life in prison.
They should be.
Michael Jenkins, let's begin with you.
And Michael is the one who was shot in the mouth. So his speech is a little bit off, as to be expected.
I feel great that we're finally getting justice after months. At first they didn't even believe us. For a while I didn't think they were gonna even get a slap on the wrist or anything, but I feel great about it.
And I know it's difficult for you to talk with the gun in your mouth. The police shot you through your mouth, lacerating your tongue. It went through to your neck, shredding that area of your neck. I am only glad that you can be with us today. Did you think you were going to survive that night, Michael?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I'm still going through pain right now. My whole face numb, my mouth hurting right now. As we speak.
And Eddie Parker, if you can talk about your response to this plea deal.
It's a long time coming. It's something I say there's also history too, coming from a long way of going through this situation with the same police officers, and pretty much you steer clear, to stay out the way so you wouldn't end up in this situation. But ending up in this situation wasn't part of me, staying clear. So I'm
KB, I was thinking of the same thing, the amount of PTSD, the trauma, lifelong that they're going to endure because of this. It's atrocious.
I'm astounded. I'm real happy that it's finally come to a point where they're getting a feeling of what they dish out to people, day in, day out.
And I really misspoke because it's not a deal. They have pled guilty. The idea that they call themselves Eddie.
Oh, and that was actually an answer to someone's question earlier. They did not make a plea deal. They pled guilty to all charges.
Parker, that they call themselves the Goon Squad. Your thoughts?
That's the Goon Squad. That seems to be a crime organization that they were paid to go out and to stop, but they became that themselves. I believe policing and the public go hand in hand. I mean, they're people just like us. They want to be held accountable for everything they do. They want to get this certain I guess you say the end of the stick treatment as being the golden ones, but they're not. They're people just like us. I mean, they go out and they do, you know, the opposite of what they're getting paid to do. I think it's very horrendous how they can call themselves, you know, Goon Squad and, you know, still put on the badge and say they're protecting people.
Malik Shabazz, your lawsuit also mentions other times Rankin County Sheriff deputies used excessive force. I want to ask you about Damian Cameron, who died in 2021.
All right, so this, I have not watched this whole thing. I watched through their interview. So I'm curious to find out about these other cases. So you have Damian Cameron, and I'm wondering what that document looks like.
After being taken into custody by the same Rankin County Sheriff's deputies who later attacked Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker.
That's interesting.
This is a clip from a WAPT news report featuring Jenkins' mother, Monica Lee.
A news release from the Rankin County Sheriff's Office says deputies got a call about a burglary and vandalism. When they arrived, Damian was identified as the suspect.
Okay, so this is why I really like this YouTube page. They bring in other information. So this Damian Cameron, this is, and I wish it was 2021. Duh, Emmy.
The release says as a deputy approached him, he began to fight and resist arrest. They were able to eventually get him into custody and into a patrol car.
And I'm thinking they're taking my son to jail. So I go outside to tell my son goodbye and I love him and I'll be up there tomorrow. At that point, when I got to the side of the truck, my son was laid on the ground, unresponsive.
Monica Lee has said she believes if the sheriff had taken action against the deputies involved in her son's death, maybe they would not have gone on to attack Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker. The lawsuit also holds Sheriff Bailey responsible.
See you, SoFlo Mom.
For failing to properly train the deputies involved in these incidents. This is Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey speaking last week about the charges his former deputies pled guilty to.
Based on the facts and their guilty pleas, all of the former deputies lied to me that night of this incident in January. We have cooperated fully with all outside investigating agencies to uncover the truth and bring justice to the victims. We've also sought assistance from outside agencies and consultants to help us in repairing our trust with the community.
So that was Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey speaking last week. Malik Shabazz.
And I'm wondering with the other case, especially with Damian Cameron, I'm curious as to, you know, what their investigation actually determined, because clearly, I mean, these goons were up to no good.
The civil rights attorney who has brought the lawsuit on behalf of Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, if you can respond to the sheriff and to this previous case.
Yes. First of all, I want to give honors to Miss Monica Lee, who was the mother of Damian Cameron, attorney Trent Walker, and myself. We represent Miss Monica Lee for the death of Damian Cameron, which occurred at the hands of the Rankin County Sheriff's Department and its officers, including Hunter Elwood, the shooter who didn't just shoot Michael Jenkins in his mouth. He placed the gun inside Michael Jenkins' mouth and held it for an extended period of time, almost up to a minute, before he intentionally shot Michael Jenkins in his mouth, attempting to kill him. Yes, Ms. Lee is correct. If they would not have participated in a cover-up around Damian Cameron's death.
Okay, and I did find, so we're going to pause that and come over here to, so this article I found from the AP in regards to Damian Cameron. This was from August 10th, 2023. Okay, so relatively new. Civil suit can continue against corrupt former deputy linked to the death of Mississippi man. And so here is Miss Lee. A civil suit can continue against a former Mississippi deputy who pleaded guilty on August 3rd to torturing 2 black men and shooting one of them in the mouth, with the suit alleging the deputy is also responsible for the death of another black man in 2021. In a ruling Wednesday, Rankin County Circuit Judge Brad Mills allowed claims of excessive force to move forward against Hunter Elward, a member of a group of corrupt law officers who called themselves the Goon Squad, a moniker they adopted because of their penchant for violent tactics. Monica Lee believes that Elward and a current deputy not linked to Elward's crimes are responsible for the death of her son, Damian Cameron. Every day is a hurtful day for me. I lost Damian because of those officers. Cameron, who had a history of mental illness, was accused of vandalizing a neighbor's home in 2021 while living with his grandparents. Elward responded to the scene and chased Cameron inside his grandparents' home. He shocked Cameron with a stun gun and punched him with a closed fist while Deputy Luke Stickman kneeled on Cameron's neck even as he cried out that he couldn't breathe, Lee alleged in court documents and interviews with the Associated Press. Cameron later died at the hospital, and an autopsy report listed his cause of death as undetermined. A grand jury declined to indict Elward and Stickman, and they were never convicted of a crime. Trent Walker, one of Lee's attorneys, said the judge's ruling would allow them to pursue justice for Miss Lee and her family on behalf of her son Damian. Jason Dare, an attorney who represents the Rankin County Sheriff's Office and its deputies in civil cases, declined to comment on the judge's Wednesday order. Elward's criminal attorney did not immediately respond to requests for comment. After Elward escaped the episode with no legal ramifications, he went on to brutally assault Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker during a surreptitious raid on January 24, 2023. Elward and 5 other law officers entered a house without a warrant where they assaulted the men with stun guns, an adult toy, and other objects, including a metal sword. The deputies mocked them with racial slurs throughout the 90-minute torture session. The episode culminated with Elward shoving a gun into Jenkins' mouth and firing, lacerating his tongue. The officers then tried to cover it up by planting drugs and a gun on Jenkins. The deputies pleaded guilty to numerous federal crimes last week and are scheduled to plead guilty to state charges on Monday, which they did. The charges followed an investigation by the Associated Press that links some of the deputies to at least 4 violent encounters with black men since 2019 that left 2 dead, including Cameron, and another with lasting injuries. The episode is a product of a police culture that gave officers carte blanche to abuse their power. They say one bad apple spoils the whole bunch, Lee said. It's been going on for years. She believes Elward would not have assumed he could get away with his brutal crimes had he been held accountable for his alleged misconduct against her son years before. Lee's complaint says that Rankin County deputies, including Elward and Stickman, were allowed to turn their body cameras on and off at their own convenience in order to cover up the deputies' misdeeds. And someone in chat had actually made a comment about how convenient their body cams were off. Well, according to this, they were allowed to turn them on and off at their own convenience. The lack of supervision and training in the use of body cameras overseen by Sheriff Brian Bailey created an environment of indifference to the rights of citizens. In a news conference after the former deputies pleaded guilty to federal charges, Bailey acknowledged his body camera policy had failed and promised to change it. Lee said he is looking forward to her day in court. My baby came to me in my dream and told me, he said, "Mama, forgive them." I forgave them, but as they always say, you won't forget. And if that day comes in court, I will stand there and I will tell them I forgive them, because I can't get through heaven if I don't forgive. Is there a DP in Mississippi? That I do not know, but let me. Death penalty in Mississippi. Yes, there is. Mississippi is one of 27 states that practice the death penalty. Its last prisoner executed was Thomas Edwin Loden Jr. on December 14th, 2022. Yes. And that man was the first in 9 years. Actually, not him. There was another one before him. There was another person who was executed on November 17th, 2021. And actually, this is, if you're interested, this is, I'm going to put this in the chat. This is from deathpenaltyinfo.org, and it gives state and federal info by state. So this is just the Mississippi law. You could find your local law if you should so choose. Actually, this is interesting. Let's take a look at this. So again, this is for Mississippi only. History of the death penalty. From 1804 to 1940, all executions in Mississippi were carried out by hanging. The first execution by electrocution took place on October 11th, 1940. From then until 1952, the electric chair was moved from county to county for 75 executions. Inmates were executed by lethal gas from 1954 to 1989. In 1984, the Mississippi legislature amended the state's death penalty statute to provide for lethal injection for all individuals sentenced to death after the law went into effect. Inmates sentenced prior to the change were still executed by lethal gas. In 1998, lethal gas was removed as an option. So then they do have where you can see notable exonerations, milestones, other interesting facts, resources. And actually here you can see number of death sentences from 1977 to 2022. They have significantly gone down. Significantly gone down. So definitely take a look at that site. It seems very interesting. They, according to the one news coverage, they did not make a plea deal. They pled guilty to all charges. Yes, both federally and state charges. They pled guilty to both.
Damian Cameron's death is analogous and very similar to George Floyd's death. It was Hunter Elwood and Luke Stickman who put the knees on Damian Cameron's back and on his neck, causing trauma to his neck and causing hemorrhages in both of Damian Cameron's eyes, meaning that the compression on his neck is what led to asphyxiation and his actual cause of death. But the autopsy mysteriously was ruled undetermined. With all of the evidence that I'm saying and all of the gruesome photos of the neck injuries and the hemorrhages of the eyes bulging out of his head, the autopsy finding was mysteriously undetermined. The autopsy itself is missing certain information, and therefore myself and Black Lawyers for Justice.
And this almost sounds like, what is that other case that, oh my gosh, I don't remember the name. I'll think of it. But it reminds me of another case that was undetermined, but it seems like there was a lot of shady stuff that had led up to this kid's death. I'm not thinking of it right now.
We have our own forensic pathologist who are coming forth shortly to show you that this was a homicide and that Rankin County and Brian Bailey.
Nope, not Michael Brown. It happened in a gym, in a gym. That's all I remember. And I don't remember the year. It was years ago. But there were, yes, there we go, Kendrick Johnson, because there was on their cameras, there were, I believe, and again, if I'm wrong, I apologize. It's been a long time since I looked at this case, but there were white students at the school on camera walking to the gym, and then they were seen walking away from the gym. And again, that death was undetermined. Again, it seems like a lot of deaths dealing with asphyxiation seem to be deemed undetermined, which is a little suspicious, in my opinion. Hey, Jeannie, what's going on?
Refused to provide the state medical examiner with information to reach a proper conclusion because they were all protecting the officers from criminal prosecution. Therefore, the autopsy is suspicious.
Sinner, do you have an article for him? If you do, send me that. Oh, 2013. Okay, so I didn't realize it was that long ago. Okay. Yeah, it just seems bizarre that there's so many, well, there's probably a lot more. This is only 2 that I'm thinking of, but you know, when it comes to asphyxiation, they're undetermined.
The autopsy and the efforts to have a genuine autopsy, it was covered up by Rankin County. And Brian Bailey has been a part of this. Ms. Lee is correct. If they hadn't been trying to cover up, if Bailey hadn't been trying to justify his officers, no, he didn't just not train them, he has participated in acts of excessive force with his department, according to the courts. When Hunter Elwood shot Pierre Woods in Rankin County on the ground.
Okay, so now here's another one. Pierre Woods. All right, so I'm going to look up Pierre Woods. I'm sure this man is going to tell us, but I want to look up Pierre Woods shooting. Oh, here we go. Wow, and this is, okay, so this is from WLBT again. And it says, Judge Rankin County Sheriff not exempt in wrongful death lawsuit involving Pelahatchie man. All right, let's see what this shows.
When I served, my work was critical, and I don't feel like that's the case anymore.
It got so bad that I was even thinking about suicide.
Whatever you're dealing with, call the Veterans Crisis Line.
All right.
New tonight, a federal judge issues a ruling saying Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey is not exempt from a wrongful death lawsuit. This stems from the 2019 shooting death of Pierre Woods in Pelahatchie. Greener Side's Quentin Smith has a copy of the ruling. He's here now to break it all down for you. Quentin?
That's right, Howard. So in that 2019 shooting, Woods was shot and killed by Rankin County deputies after an hours-long standoff. Well, 2 years later, a wrongful death lawsuit was filed against the agent.
Oh, thank you, Mona Lisa. I didn't realize it had been ruled an accident. I know at one point it was undetermined. But thank you, because like I said, I haven't looked at that in a long time.
Agencies responding to the scene, including the Rankin County Sheriff's Department. Sheriff Brian Bailey asked for immunity, but a judge denied that motion, saying Bailey is in fact liable because he was working in a supervisory role.
He should be. Oh, shit.
These are the gunshots that rang out during a standoff in Pelahatchie, killing 31-year-old Pierre Woods. This is video of that 2019 incident. Woods, who did suffer from mental health issues, was taken to the hospital where he later died. His stepfather, Jim Moore, had this to say following that fatal shooting.
It don't take that much to knock nobody down. It don't take that much.
Once officers' lives are put in.
And I agree with him. It doesn't take that much to take somebody down. I agree with Mr. Moore. I agree with that.
Danger, they had to use deadly force to protect themselves and to protect this community.
Years after this deadly shooting, law enforcement officers and agencies involved were sued in a wrongful death lawsuit accused of using excessive force. Although Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey was on scene giving commands, he asked for qualified immunity, meaning he would not be held accountable. However, a federal judge did not grant that to the sheriff. In this 14-page ruling, Judge Henry Wingate states, Sheriff Brian Bailey is individually liable because he was present at the scene, he was actively involved in the negotiations, and he played an important.
And so just hearing this, and again, this is just my opinion alone, it seems like Sheriff Brian Bailey knew what was happening in the case of the Goon Squad turning their cameras on and off. If he knew that things were not happening at this point in this case, he is not innocent in all this. That's my opinion. I feel he knew exactly what was happening because he allowed it to happen. And now he's being held accountable, at least in the case of Pierre Woods,
role in use of the alleged excessive force which led to Woods' death. The ruling also states an officer who is present at the scene and does not take reasonable measures to protect a suspect from another officer's use of excessive force may be liable under Section 1983. Judge Wingate goes on to say Bailey held the authority to order ceasefire, which would have immediately stopped the officer's shooting. Based on the record before it, this court cannot state that Sheriff Bailey's actions were reasonable under the circumstances.
Now, we reached out to the spokesperson for the Rankin County Sheriff's Department for a comment on this ruling. We are still waiting to hear back. Quentin Smith, 3 on your side.
All right, so let's see what else this says. I think this might, yeah, this kind of just says what the video said. Oh, actually, it said, I think it says something different. So let's just see. A federal judge has issued a ruling saying Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey is not exempt from a wrongful death lawsuit. The ruling, which was handed down last Friday, stems from the February 2019 shooting death of Pierre Woods in Pelahatchie. Woods, who had mental health issues, was taken to the hospital where he later died. According to investigators, when police arrived, the man inside the home began firing shots. They tried to negotiate with the man who was inside the home. Police say he was armed with a handgun. At the time, law enforcement officers said lethal force, gas, was used, but the man came out of the house armed in a threatening manner. That is when officers used deadly force. Meanwhile, Woods' family members expressed that they believe excessive force was used. As a result, 2 years after the deadly shooting, the law enforcement officers and agencies who were involved were sued in a wrongful death lawsuit. Sheriff Bailey was on the scene giving commands. He asked for qualified immunity, meaning he would not be held accountable. However, a federal judge did not grant it to him. In a 14-page ruling, Judge Henry Wingate stated, Sheriff Brian Bailey is individually liable because he was present at the scene, he was actively involved in the negotiations, and he played an important role in the use of the alleged excessive force which led to Woods' death. Oh, and here's the actual, okay, well, I'm not going to go through this, but the actual complaint is attached. So I'm going to actually put this link in the description after the live, and that way, if anybody would like to read it, you absolutely will be able to. And actually, I'm going to put the link in the chat as well right now. There we go. All right, so we've got about 8 more minutes left of this.
Ground, and he gunned him and he shot him 9 times with his rifle, and the man was no threat to him. Sheriff Bailey was on the scene, and a federal judge ruled that Bailey could not have qualified immunity because he ratified and watched it all go on in person. And so the truth is coming out about the death. of Damian Cameron and how they had the knees on his neck like his mother has testified by affidavit to, and they had the knees on his neck that crushed the life out of Damian Cameron, and they did nothing about it. They've lied to us, but we're going to bring that case. That case is coming back to life. Rankin County is infested with white supremacists, Ku Klux Klan. They infiltrated the sheriff's department. Brian Bailey has known about this. Many of these criminals were on duty up until June 1st, only through the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation and U.S. Department of Justice leader Kristen Clark and her Southern District in Mississippi, who've done a great job. Only through their efforts has Brian Bailey, sheriff, trying to come to some remorse. He has not even apologized to the victims. We demand that Brian Bailey step down now. He's a part of a pattern of practice.
And I would think that's not an unreasonable request, especially since he seems to have a lot of bad behavior under his department. And I did look quickly. I wasn't sure. I was thinking about, where's Rankin County? Rankin County is actually just, it doesn't look like it includes Jackson, Mississippi. It is just, actually, it looks like it might include some of Jackson. So I'm going to actually show this for everybody so you can see what I'm looking at. And so Rankin County is just east of Jackson. So just to kind of give an idea of where it is in the grand scheme of Mississippi. So if I zoom out a little bit, you can see it is just east of Jackson.
A culture and a custom of terrorism by his department. We have blacks, whites, rich, poor. They have been beaten by his officers. He's known this all along, and the struggle continues in this case for compensation for these two suffering victims, Jenkins and Parker, but for all of the victims of Rankin County terrorism. It's the #1 county for terrorism and white supremacist infiltration. Case in point, before I close, Christian Detman. It's coming out, he has family members that have pled guilty in Mississippi to hate crimes.
Wow.
I mean, a lot more is going to come out about this. Rankin County is infested with white supremacists, Ku Klux Klan, and it's in the police department.
Yeah, I can agree with that, Senator. Stankin County. Well, and I said rank, like the definition. Well, let me look up the definition of rank. I always say things smell rank. And I don't know if that's slang or if that's actually a real definition. I always say, oh, that smells rank. Oh, yes. Having an offensive, rancid odor. Yes. So I always say rank. Smells rank. Yeah. Ill-smelling, malodorous, stinky, unpleasant. Yes. Rankin County has some rank officers, in my opinion.
Departments.
And Malik Shabazz, can you place Rankin County for us in two ways, in history and also just geographically? It's right near Jackson, the capital.
Yes. Attorney Trent Walker says, who grew up in Rankin County, my partner, Attorney Trent Walker, states that this was customary in Rankin County. They beat first and they don't ask questions later. They beat you, they kill you, and you are ordered not to say anything about it. Hunter Elwood, the shooter, actually pled guilty in federal court to another crime he had committed, which contained a similar fact to what he did in the home of Jenkins and Parker. When these deputies busted in...
Whoa. Let me just back up a little bit, because is he saying that one of these guys
and they don't ask questions later. They beat you, they kill you, and you are ordered not to say anything about it. Hunter Elwood, the shooter, actually pled guilty in federal court to another crime.
A warning to our audience.
Dang it, I am so sorry. I hit the wrong button again. So I did hear that right. It was about here. He pled guilty to federal charges in another shooting. I need to look up this Hunter Elwood. I thought I heard that wrong, but I didn't hear that wrong.
Actually pled guilty in federal court to another crime he had committed, which contained a similar fact to what he did.
A similar fact to what he did to these two men. What the heck? How was he still a police officer?
In the home of Jenkins and Parker. When these deputies busted in to begin this torture session, Hunter Elwood shot his gun off as an intimidation against Jenkins and Parker. Before he shot Michael later, he shot his gun off. Well, he pled guilty in federal court to doing the same thing to another person in Rankin County. He just shooting his gun off like that. So what we're saying, ma'am, is that all of
wow. So I want to know what case was that? Because so he did the similar. He went in, shot his gun, just shot his gun off not at the actual victims, but as an intimidation tactic. Yet he was still a police officer. Are you kidding me? I mean, Vic, he was found, he was brought up on federal charges. I mean, this is insane.
all of these truths are going to come to light. Rankin County has done this for a long time. It's near Jackson, Mississippi. Jackson, Mississippi, and I believe the county is sort of a reaction to Jackson. Jackson is in Hinds County. It's majority Black, and there's hostility towards Jackson. And Rankin is like a white enclave that is next to Jackson, and it's set up like almost like a political, social antithesis or against Jackson. And so they're clear in Rankin, just 20 minutes away from Jackson, Mississippi, just like these deputies said. They didn't want any Black men living in the area. The mere fact that there were Black men in this area, that they were going to carry out this mission and let them know that they were not welcome and they were going to violate all laws and break in. It's because they have determined, I believe these deputies and others in that county have determined that Rankin County is for whites and Hinds County.
Wow. This is insane. Like, yeah, I'm wondering, Sinner, like, what about the other officers? You know, like, I don't know.
Is for Blacks, and they're going to enforce it under the color of law, through violence and torture. Not to mention, especially on this program, we cannot forget waterboarding. Waterboarding was where the United States...
And actually, let me look at, because they had said, they mentioned the Pearl River in that... Oh, okay, so that would make sense, because... Let me go back to my map. The county line runs along the Pearl River. So if you look here, we have this reservoir. But if you zoom in, the county line runs along the Pearl River. And what was stated in that criminal complaint was that the officers told Jenkins and Parker to go back to, quote, their side of the Pearl River. So what that attorney just said now makes sense based on reading that criminal complaint, because they were on the quote wrong side of Pearl River.
Military was condemned for using these techniques at the Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq, in the Iraq War. The military denounced this. But in 2023, incredibly, in Rankin County, these deputies, Elwood, McAlpin, Dedman, Updike, Middleton, Hartsfield, they actually waterboarded the two men you see now. They had them on their backs. They had them handcuffs. They had them intimidated, and they were pouring milk, liquids, and grease all over their faces in this insane interrogation and intimidation act. Then after they did all this, can you imagine law enforcement with dildos and sexual devices in their possession, attempting and putting it in the mouths? I hate to say this, that happened to the brothers, but we got to know their pain and suffering. To take a dildo and to shove it in the mouths of handcuffed and bound men, and waterboard them like that on the ground, and then hurl eggs at them, and then make them strip naked in the shower to try to clean this mess up, strip these men naked.
And again, I think it's this dude. So this dude in the middle, I believe that he is the head goon of the goon squad. So he's the head scumbag, and then all these are his other goons or other scumbags.
In front of these criminals, you know, it just never fails to ignite my passion, and therefore tactically and strategically, we are after Rankin County, and we won't let up.
Yes.
I want to end with the voices of Michael, Corey Jenkins, and Eddie Terrell Parker. How you have lived through the aftermath of this, the trauma that you have experienced, and what you want to come out of this. I mean, it looks like you are exposing an entire sheriff's department in Mississippi. Let's begin with Eddie Parker.
We want justice. We want justice for everyone that has gone through this with Rankin County, or gone through this because of Rankin County. We want justice for the ones that were afraid to speak up. You know, justice for the ones that can't speak up. We want you know, something new and better, and, you know, and clean to come out of this.
And Michael Jenkins.
Basically the same thing, to make sure nobody never go through what we went through again. You know, animals don't get treated like this. You know, I ain't never seen no animal get treated like this.
Well,
just to make sure.
I just want to thank you, Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker, for your bravery in coming forward and telling your stories. And also, I want to thank Malik Shabazz, the civil rights attorney with Black Lawyers for Justice.
Right. And again, that was from Democracy Now! So that is all I have for us. That definitely a lot of shady stuff going on in Rankin County. And this is a story that I hope others do start talking about. I know Pascal did do a live on it a couple of days ago. And hopefully others start to as well, because again, this happened back in January, but just recently, probably when the criminal complaint was filed, which again was on July 31st, so just about 3 weeks ago. Actually 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago yesterday. So hopefully this story will start getting some exposure, and people will start talking about it, because this is not okay. And when I first initially saw this story, I was at my parents' house. I think it was actually the day that I had suggested that my mom order pizza, because I wanted pizza for dinner. And so they were watching the nightly news, and I saw this story, and I was like, oh my God, like, what the fuck? Right? And I just realized I said the F word. Bad, Emmy, bad. But that's what I said. And I just hope that other people start to talk about this, because this is not okay and it needs to change. So again, thank you everyone for being here. I very much appreciate it. Thank you so much for being respectful and keeping things civil. I do appreciate it. So I don't foresee myself going live again, but y'all know how that goes. I'm like the wind. I come and go as I please. So until next time, I hope you all have a great night, and I will see you all on the flip side.